Welcome back. Prime Minister Stephen Harper made a comment today saying that the possible economic fallout of the disaster in Japan should serve as a wake-up call. Take a listen.
I think the Japanese will find their way of coping, but the fact of the matter is there should be a wake-up, that we cannot afford to take our focus off the economy and get into a bunch of unnecessary political games or, as I said, an opportunistic and unnecessary election that nobody is asking for.
So, was the linking of the crisis in Japan and what's going on economically a wise decision, or was that a threat that heading to the polls will lead to economic disaster in Canada? Should Stephen Harper have even linked the two issues? Was it fair game or not? Let's ask the power panel, because I don't have the answer. Greg Weston is with CBC News. Graham Frox is with Fraser Milner Casgrain, and in Toronto, Rob Silver with Crestview Strategy. Hello, gentlemen. Surrounded by gentlemen tonight. Who wants to start? Greg, you start, because you thought that this might happen, apparently. What's your view?
Waking up this morning to news that the indexes were heading into hundreds of points loss, it did occur that if we got into an economic meltdown larger than what happened, if it just kept going, that was probably it for an election.
Sure.
In the short term.
Sure.
That there was no opposition party, for starters, would be crazy enough to call an election if we were in an economic crisis. Fallback position, if it rebounded, the Prime Minister would probably use this as he did later in the day, to make the point that, this is pretty fragile. Things are volatile. This is no time for an election. Steady as she goes. This is very much on his message that this is all about the election.
Sure.
So
it's all about the economy.
It's all about the economy. And if there is an election, then he can go in there and say, we should be, this is, hoping that the public will have a negative reaction towards any party that would force an election.
But is it fair game to say that at this stage, Graham?
I think it is fair game because it reinforces what Canadians are already thinking and worrying about. I think Greg is probably exactly right. When people wake up and turn on the TV and see all of this, not just on the market news, dare I add, but also on the political news and the front of the newscast, what you see is risk. What you see is difficulty in other places and real problems. And so what that reinforces for the Prime Minister is the notion that if there is in Canada some notion that we might have an election and there may be risk, maybe we should opt for continuity. Maybe we should opt for something that is actually largely working for us, and the polls show us that Canadians probably agree with that on the economy and other things, the government is providing some stability. So I think for the Prime Minister, it was the right message on substance, and it probably reinforces things that voters already kind of think in their hearts and minds that's what they want, which is stability.
Surely Rob doesn't agree.
Even that's just a political game that he's described. Look, if this wasn't a government that had spent $26 million over 9 weeks on partisan but Government of Canada ads, if this wasn't a party that had done the largest pre-writ partisan advertising campaign in Canadian political history, if this wasn't a party that had decided that Justin Trudeau making a few aside comments was suddenly the only reason you can possibly take your eye off the economy, then I'd have some sympathy with the government. Look, these are serious times. What's going on in Japan is obviously a tragedy. When you combine them with what's going on in the Middle East at a time that oil prices are unstable and unpredictable, and nuclear energy in terms of the future is hugely unpredictable, these are serious times. But this government and this Prime Minister is nothing but one big political game. So it's hard to take the comments seriously that we have to ignore political games, we have to focus on nothing but the economy, when the Prime Minister is clearly himself focusing on nothing but partisan political games.
It reminded me sort of vaguely of during the last election when the stock markets were crashing and it was a very difficult time for investors, and the Prime Minister suggested that it might be a good time to buy. You just question whether it's the right time to make that statement, whether it's fair or not, whether it's too soon, whether we're too close to what has happened in Japan to start talking about the instability and how that affects us and whether it's an election. I don't know.
Well, I can tell you I was standing 2 feet in front of the Prime Minister when he said that during the last election campaign. I got back in the bus, and it just happened that my financial advisor, who had what was left of my stock portfolio at that time, I said, how bad is it? He said, don't quit your day job, and hung up. That's the last I heard of him through that whole period. So much for the Prime Minister's financial advice on that. Look, I think this is sort of the opposite. But I think I take Rob's point at this. Everybody is playing political games here. It was predictable that the government would say, hey, it's just steady as she goes, because they have nothing to lose by saying that. Does that mean we won't have an election? No. Does that mean we shouldn't have an election? No. But as long as there is economic stability and there isn't an economic crisis somewhere, that is very not much. If it's not playing to Stephen Harper, it certainly is not playing to Jack Layton or Michael Ignatieff. So,
does the argument work? Is that really something that works? Stay the course. We've got things under control. Do you think that resonates with people?
I think it does work when you already know that voters are kind of with you on those issues. We know that one of the Prime Minister's strong suits is his management of the economy. This is the government's best card in its hand.
That's why they talk about it all the time.
And that's why they talk about it all the time, and that's why they should. And so I think for those reasons, it was the right card to play, precisely because we can think about what's going on at committee tomorrow and for the rest of the week, and whether or not we're going to have confidence motions, non-confidence motions, contempt motions, non-contempt motions. Everybody's playing politics in Ottawa with what's going on, and if the government wants to bring in that dose of reality and bring in Canadians, this is that one thing where people at the supper table tonight, people watching TV at 10 o'clock tonight, are going to listen to the Prime Minister, remember the images of Japan, and say, actually, he might be onto something here. Maybe stability is what we need. So that may be resonating more than what's going on with Bevoda or not Bevoda or other things.
Sure, but if I show them pictures of 40 MPs and ministers out across the country talking about things that they've done, what message does that send to them, Rob? That the government is hammering home the point fairly, or that they are really hammering home the point? Do you know what I mean? How fair is that?
Yeah, look, they are playing political games. It would be weird for an incumbent government to say anything other than stay the course. Yeah. Governments don't typically run on make wild changes because they lose jobs if the public is in the mood to make wild changes. Look, the opposition has to make the case on why this is a government that doesn't have a plan for the things that matter to them in terms of the economy, in terms of the elderly. That's what the campaign, if there is one, is going to be about. So this cuts both ways. This is a government that is very good when they have a script. Stephen Harper has traditionally been very good when he has the 5 priorities to run on, when he knows where the script is. He's in worse shape when he has to go off script. Mm-hmm. I don't think Stephen Harper knows what he wants a 4-year mandate for other than more of the same. It'll be interesting in the midst of a 36-day campaign what he actually says in terms of what he would do if he had 4 more years of more of the same. It's not going to be enough, I think, to get him through an entire RIP period to say simply, things are good, so give me 4 more years. I think he's going to actually have to articulate what he would do with the 4 more years, and that's where the rubber's going to hit the road.
And do they have ideas to fill up those 4 years? Well, because that's one of the problems now.
And here's just one more point on this issue. If we suddenly had a huge drop in the stock market, this isn't just sort of a curiosity. People are watching that and saying, oh my God, there go my savings, there go my pension, and there goes my worry quotient. Mm-hmm. If that happened in the middle of an election campaign, I think you have to ask you the question, are Canadians who are in those categories going to say, I want to get rid of this government because of X, Y, Z, or do I want to just, whatever it's going to take to get this back up again? Right. And for whatever reason, the one strength that the Harper government has is that we have endured what was supposed to be the Great Depression too. Most people are back to where they started in terms of savings. It was just a report today, and stock portfolios. So that is their strength, and they're going to play for it. If this happened in the middle of a campaign, the opposition would be hard-pressed to make some other issue front and center.
Okay, I want to take a quick break. Your stocks are back where they should be. You're okay. I'll have to buy you a coffee later.
They're never where they should be.